recording. We are live. Aussies taking over the NBA. It is Tuesday night at the moment in
Yes, it
Australia.
is.
Yeah, still pre-season's
Tuesday
kicking
night.
along nicely. We've got Paddy Mills season preview coming up. Paddy, the ultimate white hot streak for the Boomers, taking his form hopefully into the San Antonio Spurs next season. So it's going to be a Paddy Mills season preview. I've got Andrew here, as always. Andy, how are you, mate?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Yeah, not bad for a Tuesday night.
Tuesday night.
So
How
Patrick,
do you feel now we've pumped out our 100 episodes?
yeah, feel pretty good. It's good. It's always like the content's always evolving because you always just sort of every game's a game, and every game comes along, and that's how it goes. We've got how long we got to go to the start of the season.
Next Wednesday, I think, first games Australia time. So I think Tuesday American time is the first games.
So about 7 days to go.
Yep. Yep.
It's
7
come
days.
around quick, man.
It is, man. It's coming, and it's going to be a long, arduous season, but it's going to be fantastic. I've been missing it, man. By the end of last season, I was like, oh, I'm so over this, but now I'm just like, I'll get back.
Yeah.
So 82 games of minutes out of my life, but I enjoy every moment of it. So let's talk about the Spurs
Yeah,
roster.
the Spurs. I think
No,
we got to start by going back to last year. So they made that big blockbuster trade. Sorry to just hijack your train of thought there, but they made that big DeRozan trade, and that was a big sort of franchise piece. Obviously, giving up Kawhi for him to go to the Toronto Raptors and eventually win a championship. It started off with me thinking like, this would be sweet, DeRozan in Pop's system, and then after about 2 months of that, just like, this is just the same thing over and over again, and it's like not that fun. Like, it was good at the start. I was like, man, this is great to watch. Like, DeRozan's, mid-range game, this is sweet. And then after 2 months, I was just like, so bored of this, man. Like, it's the same thing over and over and over again. They finally make it to the playoffs, or they do make it to the playoffs, and then they have the upper hand basically in the Denver series, and then they just choke it away. That was just so un-Spursian to just, whatever, just give up that series. It's over.
Yeah, it was kind of like they just didn't have the depth. DeRozan was just LaMarcus Aldridge is just low post Marcus. They haven't improved their roster at all, and I
Nah.
think the NBA has improved as a whole in terms of the rostering, who they've got on their teams. You've got a really stacked West Coast and Western Conference, and the Spurs are just the same minus Davis Bertans.
Pretty much, yeah. And then if you're looking at their roster from last year, there's no one really. They're Quincy Pondexter, an old guy, didn't really play that many minutes. They had a couple of injuries, so they had DeJounte Murray got injured last season, pretty much out for the entire season. Rudy Gay had a few on and off injuries as well. They found a little piece in Bryn Forbes. He shot the three ball pretty well throughout the season, but he's only a young guy as well, 26. Not necessarily young, but young in his career, only just sort of making a name for himself. But I think DeJounte Murray was a pretty big blow for them to lose, a main point guard like that. It was good for Paddy. He ended up playing a fair few minutes at the end of last season, or pretty much all the way through last season. But there again, like, you're pairing just LaMarcus Aldridge with Rudy Gay, with DeMar DeRozan, and then sort of adding in Rudy Gay. It's just uninspiring, man. I thought I wanted to see that last year, but after a couple of months, I was just like, it's just the same thing over and over again. And questions over Pop, man. Like, he had that USA stint too, where not a great tournament for them. I mean, plenty of extraneous circumstances.
Like, no one showed up.
Yeah, none of the stars showing up. Their team essentially boiling down to just some really sort of B grade and C grade talent. But still, like, Pop and Kerr, I was kind of expecting a little bit more, and they didn't really produce that much. Is that harsh, do you reckon, to sort of say that?
No, I think they relied on some players that don't understand the FIBA system, haven't been in the FIBA system, never played the FIBA game. Like, you go to your old stalwart stars, LeBron, Wade, all these guys have played in World Cups. They understand. And it was just Kemba Walker and Donovan Mitchell driving into traffic the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, Brook Lopez did not let any fly. He was kind of just completely null void. And then he comes back and plays for the Bucks and scores 15 all outside, So it's kind of it doesn't seem like they played this weird pick and pop game, whereas a lot of getting into the mid range. Kuzma obviously got injured as well.
Yeah, that was a
But
pretty big blow.
It was kind of this, oh, how do we take on the zone? Let's try and get into the mid range and score because we've got really small guards and they're not really shooting the ball outside well, and a lot of the guys are running off the line, and everyone's just funneling into big 7-footers because there's some big centers in the FIBA game, especially Lithuania, Serbia. They came up against Jokic and Marjanovic and good old Boban, and so they had something to work against. And it just seemed like Pop and Co just kind of sat back and went, yeah, this isn't working for us. We'll just kind of just slink back into oblivion. And man, it's World Cup. We'll get all our good players back in the Olympics, and it's all good. But it was kind of like, a pretty okay Spain team ended up winning it against an Argentine team in the final that really had no stars. Had an old Luis Scola. But then, the USA didn't even, I think they finished 7th. They shit the bed against Serbia in that playoff game. And it was just like, yeah, it was an uninspiring series from the USA. Last season was uninspiring from the Spurs. They just kind of got it done, got to the finals, then bowed out like the year they did before when they came up against Golden State. So it was kind of like, are we expecting them just to kind of be that mid team until they draft that really? Is Pop looking for that deep second round golden draft like Manu Ginobili?
Ginobili.
Who knows? Ginobili.
So the reason I sort of bring that up is, did that feel that the end of last season feel like an extension of that USA, where if you had a different sort of coach, Pop's an older guy, he's done everything in basketball, he's one of the main sort of kingpins of iconic NBA. It felt like last year when they went out, it was and we lose. Yeah, whatever, who cares? And that even this USA stuff sort of felt the same. Like, we're here, we're just having some fun. We went out. Oh well, who cares? Like, I wonder how much that's sort of biting into what San Antonio really have to do this season, which is kind of reestablish their roster as well as the way they play the game. It's a massive rebuild that they've got to sort of embark on. I think it's a big test of what Popovich's real nuts are as a coach here this season or the next couple of seasons.
Did he just get lucky with Timmy Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu?
I wouldn't say lucky, but yeah.
Picked up some smart picks. Tony Parker was a smart pick.
Even Kawhi.
Tim Duncan was a great. Even Kawhi, Kawhi was deep first round. He wasn't a top pick. Are they waiting for that deep first, early second round pick to take the club to the next level? I think that they're just waiting and biding, because it's not as if last year they had a season-ending injury to a integral piece. Obviously,
Murray
wasn't Brentford. DeJounte Murray. That's a young guard that's good, and you'd want to see him play the whole season, develop, but he's not a 30-point a night kind of guy. That's what you really lean on DeRozan for. But DeRozan, his game has never really taken that next step, and then he just kind of goes missing in the finals.
Yeah, crunch time, yeah.
It's left to LaMarcus to kind of handle things, and there's a lot of whispers saying that he's probably going to be back in Portland. He's kind of done the whole San Antonio experiment. It hasn't worked because it's a system team. It's not really a standout team. No one's bigger than the system. But to me, the system is boring, and it's they're the lowest. They take the least amount of threes in a league that is just about the three ball now and shooting off the screen. Some nights they'll put up 130, then other nights they'll put up like 65. And you're just like, how did you get from that to that? I don't understand. So it's a bit of a weird, tired old system that you could kind of say, yeah, they'll finish between 6 and 10 this year pretty comfortably.
I look at this team and they took a real sort of roll of the dice getting rid of Kawhi and bringing in DeRozan. And again, it started out like, this would be really interesting, but then you kind of pair it with Michael Aldridge and you're like, this is pretty like old school basketball, not new wave stuff at all. It isn't really working. I feel like DeJounte Murray, they lost an important piece of their team last year, but not important in the sense that he's only sort of a second year guy. You know what I mean? It was a year of his development that they lost, which they could have gained. It wasn't like, oh, they lose Kawhi, which is an important piece of their team. So I understand that. But I think, man, the cojones is going to have to come from Pop here, because he's got like a 3 or 4 year window where this team kind of needs something, like it needs a rocket up it if they're going to sort of return. They might even fade out of the playoffs. Like I'd never sort of bet against a Spurs team not finishing the playoffs while Greg Popovich is there, but it's starting to seem like that, man. It's starting to look like it's gone the way out type of thing. They might not even make the playoffs this season because they're mishmash of styles, different players, like the game's sort of going towards the 3-ball, and then they're one really good 3-point shooter. They're just like out, see you later, in batons. So
I think what they do have is they have a pretty deep roster. I would say that they're all kind of mid-level guys, but they go fairly deep. So if any kind of injuries pop up in that Western Conference where teams are, potentially carrying 1 or 2 guys down, they're ready to pounce on games. But in the crunch time of a playoffs, they just kind of get blown away. And that's where they're at. And that's where they were last year, is that they kind of won a lot of games against teams with guys down. And therefore they got the easy win and were able to capitalize on, like a 45-win season without really wowing anybody. Patty had some good games last year. He had a couple of game winners, which was really good and put him in good stead for the Boomers call up this year in the World Cup finals. But I think this.
Sorry, yeah, keep going.
No, you're right.
No, I was going to say they chugged along, just quietly to a 48-34 record. Like that's a pretty good record, but yet finished 7th in the conference basically. With a 48,
because it was such
it's an absolute fucking murderer's row last season in that Western Conference.
Yeah, well, it was, and there was some pretty, obviously Phoenix were just trash-tastic last year, and there were some easy win teams in there, and the Mavs kind of just went on this massive losing streak. But everyone's a year older. Everyone's a year closer to retirement in their kind of main stars, and their games aren't going to change. Like Patty's game's not going to change. It's a good game. It's a shooting game. It's a 3 game. It's an assist game. It's not going to change. LaMarcus Aldridge is not going to change.
No.
I don't see DeMar DeRozan stretching the floor and becoming this excellent 3-point shooter. So where does it come from? Where do the 50 wins come from this year in a much stronger West? The Lakers aren't going to be trash this year. The Clippers aren't going to be trash this year. Where do these wins come from?
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's kind of a worry. If you look at sort of their stats last season, like LaMarcus 21.2 points a game, 21.3 points per game was their top scorer, and then DeRozan 21.2. If you could probably get rid of LaMarcus and stretch DeRozan to 30, but then their middle of the road guys in Rudy Gay, Bryn Forbes, even Bellinelli, White, and Mills were all like around 12 points a game. Like it's just not enough. They don't have that dynamic nuclear scorer, and they kind of all share it around. Yet it works. It's a really sort of strange thing.
It's a system game. One thing that Pop is good at is these guys don't play 38 minutes a night. There's a lot of rotations. Patty plays 20, the guards play 25. The reason that they can win 45, 46, 47, 48 games is because they're all fit and healthy throughout the year. It's a load management system. It's a system that doesn't require one player to score 30 a night. The flip side of that is that they're never going to go for a deep playoffs run. They'll get there. They'll get 8th, 7th seed, but they're never going to go deep in the playoffs because they don't have that guy that can just take over and score and has that going into the playoffs. And that's not LaMarcus. LaMarcus is on a good night, it's a 50-pointer, but in a tight defensive playoff situation, he's not that clutch. DeRozan's not clutch.
No.
Not at all.
No, I don't think
Patty's clutch, but Patty's, a role piece, sixth man, potentially sixth man of the year if he gets a good going this year. Like I think he had a fantastic Boomers campaign. He was knackered by the end of it. But it'll be interesting to see what this season brings for him in that roster now that DeJounte Murray's back. They've got Derek White. They've got a couple of more point guards. Will he play the 2 spot? Will he play, 20 minutes of both? And will he be the one shooting the majority of the threes this year? Because he was kind of that last year. He was the one putting up the most shots from three. But you've also got Bellinelli in that picture, potentially playing the 2 or 3. I don't know. What do you see this team in terms of wins this year?
What did I have already marked down?
What's Vegas odds at?
Vegas odds were 45.5 wins. That's a lot of wins.
That's a lot of wins, but they somehow seem to get it.
Yeah, 48. So that I think a lot of that was to do with their 48 that they had last year. You know what I mean? And it's the Spurs. I went with 41, but just to go back onto the stats for this team, if you look at their 2 top scorers, 21.3 points and 21.2, so 21.5 points basically. LaMarcus Aldridge and DeRozan both shot, half a 3 a game basically, and 23% from 3 and 15% for DeRozan from 3. They're your 2 top scorers, yet they didn't shoot any threes. It was basically up to Bryn Forbes, who ended up shooting 5 a game, and then Bellinelli 5 a game, and Patty Mills 5 a game as well. Bryn Forbes was their best shooter, basically 42.6% from 3. And Batan's 42.9% from 3 on 4.5. Looks like it's just they just didn't shoot any threes, man. I don't see how they take your, if your 2 top scorers aren't shooting even a 3 a game, basically that takes your points per game from, a possible 30 to 32 maybe a game down to 20, and then you're never going to score enough points to win enough games. If you look at their pace last season, 22nd of 30 is too slow. Defensive rating was not very Spurs-like. It was 111.2, which was the 19th. But offensive rating, they were 7th out of 30. So pretty much right where they were at in the league, basically. 7th best offense, which is, kind of reflective of what they were doing. But it leads nicely into Paddy. We should talk individually, Paddy the individual, after a pretty good campaign. One of the biggest sort of things that blows your mind was last year, Paddy playing 23.3 minutes, yet only started 1 game. Always coming off the bench, yet playing 23 minutes. It's a sort of
that Lou Williams.
Yeah.
It's that Lou Williams style play where he's straight into the game, running the point, running the 2 spot, a lot of off-ball movement. Like you see Paddy, he never stops running. That's why he's playing 23 minutes a game, is that it's the off-ball movement and allowing defenders to peel off LaMarcus and DeRozan to get into the mid-range because they're worried about Paddy's coming and scoring off a curl. I would like to see more of that this year. I want to see him shooting around the 40% mark because we know he can do it. In the Boomers colours, he can shoot lights out. Obviously, he's never going to be their main scorer, but I think that he proved in a tournament he could be their main scorer. He could be their main 3-point option. Putting up a lot more numbers than he is and has been currently. So it'd be interesting to see how Pop use him now that DeJounte Murray's back. Are we going to see him playing 23 minutes or potentially 10 to 15 minutes a night? He's got 2 years left on his contract, I think. I'll just check that.
This might be his last year, I think.
Is this his 3rd year, 30 million?
No, sorry. So this year, next year, he's guaranteed and he's unrestricted free agent, 2021.
So, yeah, he's got 2 more years.
Yeah, so it was a 4-year 48. So I don't know if he's worth the same amount of money at his age now. I think going into 2021, he'll be 33.
He's probably that kind of that veteran shooter and, probably commanding between 4 and 5 mil a season.
Yeah.
I think
a 3-year 15 or something like that, or 3-year 18 or 19 or something front-end loaded, something like that.
Yeah, because he's small. He's like Redick. He's small. He could probably last till he's in his late 30s. Love to see him come back and play in the NBL.
Yeah, that'd be superb. I'd love to see that.
That'd be so good, and I hope he does. I hope we get 1 or 2 seasons of him here, playing in a load restricted, game, potentially extending his career further. Just to give back to Australian basketball, I think all these players should come back and play in the NBL like Bogut's done for 1 or 2 seasons, and not just go straight to retirement. But I'm thinking that maybe that this year he'll be playing a little bit less minutes. But again, an injury could strike at any time and he could be up playing 25, 26 minutes a game again.
Yes, and that's the beauty of, Patty Mills as a veteran presence. the kind of investment that the Spurs organization has in him as a player. Like he's an attitude guy. Pop always says that he's one of the best guys in the dressing room all the time. So it speaks to his character in general. And I think to tie that into coming down under to play for the NBL, like I feel like that's in his DNA to be like, yeah, that's something I want to chalk off the list. I want to do that to give back. Like it's in his personality, I think, to want to give back to the NBL in general. So I do hope we see that. Maybe I think he's still got maybe 3 or 4 years left in the league, or maybe even 4 or 5 years left in the NBA in general. Which leads on to, I was just thinking about how his minutes are going to drop, right? And I think he plays better when he's running a team. Like, you know what I mean? Like, to lead into the Boomers, like, it just took his game to a completely different level that he was able to play that way for the Boomers, essentially. And I think you saw more out of him in this Boomers campaign than you did in the Spurs season, basically. Because,
pretty much. Well, he becomes the main scorer.
The main guy, basically, yeah.
What other offense did the Boomers have that could generate this shot off the dribble?
That's true.
Whereas in a Spurs environment, DeRozan can shoot off the dribble, LaMarcus can shoot off the dribble. There's a lot more players. He kind of becomes that JJ Redick clone, where he's always running around the curl, shooting off screens, playing a bit of mid-range, getting into positions to give the ball away to other guys and open up DeRozan and Aldridge, who probably have a higher percentage mid-range game than Paddy does. That's what he is. It's the off-ball movement is what you don't see in the NBA and what's not under the statistic line, which Paddy's really good at.
And I think, I think his sort of, like, his game expands if he's less of a plug-in guy, which is why we saw such good numbers. Like, if you have a look at these, I've got the numbers up here. Shot 40% from 3, basically 40.4% from 3, 57.6% from 2, basically 49% from the field as a guard is like a phenomenal effort. If you look at 15 points against Canada, 22 against Senegal, 23 against Lithuania, 19 against the Dominican Republic, 30 against France, 24 against the Czech Republic, 34 points against Spain, yet only shot 4 of 11 from 3 in that game. Like, he had 11 of 25 from the field. Basically, all his points were coming from inside, like a phenomenal, and from the free throw line, like a phenomenal effort. It's just a shame we couldn't get over the hump. And then that third place game against France, he didn't have the best game, 15 points, 6 of 12 from the field.
We were dead. We were dead that game.
Yeah.
That game was over before it started. I think they gave everything they had to give in the Spain game in the semi-final. So
pretty much.
That was pretty much it. If they hadn't win that, then it was game over.
So he ended
very
up,
heavy.
Yeah. Very heavy
Very
minutes.
heavy workload.
Yeah.
Very.
So he ended up with 22.8. How many minutes? 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So he averaged 33.9 minutes through the tournament, 271 minutes in total. And then we were also talking about that while we were doing the coverage. The tournament was just like you play every third day or second day or whatever it was. Like, it was an insane tournament. It was just like, you play, you have a rest, you play, you have a rest, you play. And it's kind of like, it became a war of attrition, which is why I think France, Spain, and Argentina were, the winners of that tournament, because they had a lot of sort of role guys that weren't just coming off crazy NBA seasons, and they were fresh. Like, the US weren't fresh at all. Like, you could tell a lot of those guys were gassed playing through that tournament. And Australia is the same. We've got a few NBA guys there, and they were all gassed, and they were kind of ended up being the main guys that we had to go to. And but
we didn't use our deep bench as well.
Nah.
We just didn't have the quality in that deep bench to go to, and therefore, a lot of our guys are playing too many minutes. And by the end of the tournament, and you get what you're given, essentially.
Which again, I also said that I kind of like that. It's like war of attrition. Sweet. Like, I kind of like that 2-week tournament, war of attrition. You play every 2 days. Good luck. Like, the team with the most sort of depth wins. I'm kind of okay with that.
Pretty much.
So Paddy obviously had a fantastic Boomers campaign. That was great. So coming up to this season, this Spurs roster, they brought in Damari Carroll. DeJounte Murray's back, obviously, from injury. They drafted a power forward, Lucas Šamanić. Did they draft anyone else apart from that? Keldon Johnson as well, small forward. So no guards, really. they're kind of left with basically Paddy Mills, and then like Bryn Forbes, Lonnie Walker, and DeJounte Murray and Derek White, all as the kind of, mishmash of guys they got to play in the guard spot. So I think you could probably expect to play 15 minutes a game. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'd say 15 to 20 minutes a game. Probably on back-to-backs more minutes on back-to-backs.
And then I suppose we should give a prediction on what we think, how high we think the Spurs are going to finish. So we'll go.
I'm going to go 43 wins.
43 for you. Lock it in.
Yeah,
43 locked in the spreadsheet. I went with 41, so under. We're both under on that. I just don't see him winning 50 games, man. It's just a lot of games. You know what I mean?
Dude. Cool.
Yeah.
Should we wrap this up?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see anyway. Yeah, we should wrap it up. What else have we got to bring?
Last two, Dallas and Jazz.
Dallas and Jazz, and no one else, none of the other ones. There's no one else, is there?
That's it. The last of the Aussies.
All right. Well,
the last of the Aussies.
We'll bring that in the next 7 days, because that's how long it's going to be until the start of the new season.
That's right. We'll probably come live on the weekend, have a chat, and we'll hit the crescendo with our second great white hope, which is the Utah Jazz, which probably has improved. It has improved its roster dramatically. So, as opposed to the Spurs, which have kind of kept neutral.
Yeah, and my last year's crazy prediction of
60 wins.
60
I think that'll probably be.
Forever it will be talked about as a glorious moment in my illustrious over-under history.
All right, everyone.
All right, everyone. You can like, share on this side. I got to remember how to do it. All the way up here is all our socials, and watch, listen on podcast, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Facebook. Join the Facebook group. We'll try and get something going with that this season. And Twitter. I'm trying to do Twitter things, but I'm not the greatest Twitterizer, so I'll try and work on that this season. And yeah, we'll see you guys on the next episode. Take it easy.
Peace.
Peace.